Yeah, hello and
Hello together.
yeah, hello.
Hello, Robert.
Yeah, welcome to Fun with RELUX episode 6. And today's topic is planning or design with sensors, sensing devices. And yeah, by talking about sensors are something which is quite wide in definition. So you have sensors all over in your cell phones, in industrial in arrangements, all over you have sensors in your car, wherever. So we're talking about sensors for lighting. This means sensors which detects presence, which detects if somebody is in the room or is in a site or an area or whatever, or sensors which detects daylight or other light sources and can then reduce the energy or dim down or switch on and switch off luminaires.
Yes, in a simple way to say sensors which is switching on off the light in your rooms, in your buildings.
Yeah. So and what is about RELUX and sensors?
Yes, in RELUX it has, I must say, a long tradition because we have started very early, long years ago, more than a decade, to working with sensors. And in the beginning, so that was the idea that there was a need to find out the detection range of sensors, if it is working in a given situation, in a given room. And there was the idea also this detection range to store it as a 3D information, singular like we do it in the LDC curves for the light calculation, and then using similar algorithms for calculating to detecting if the sensor is working or not. And in the beginning we started with a format which is very similar to the Eulenblatt format to storing this information.
Yeah, but there's a difference between sensors and LDCs or lumen distributions. This is the detection ranges. One sensor could have more than one different detection ranges. It's not just you have one detection range. There are different ones. This is depending if you move tangential or radial into this detection area, and also if you just have minor movements or major movements. And so the way how to detect movement is divided in, we have at the moment in RELUX 3 different zones: tangential, radial, and presence in a way. Everything is okay. So presence detection, and there's also many more. If it depends on the definition of the manufacturer from the sensors. So for example, there are also some sensor manufacturers which have 4 or maybe 5 different detection ranges. So this is also to be in design. You have to be aware which kind of detection range for major or minor motion should be in calculation or in your design. And RELUX also supports this. So in RELUX we can see at least 3 detection ranges, one sensor, and this is also one of the features in RELUX you have if you're working with sensors.
Yes, and I guess we can say these are the 3 major situations we have actually in the infrared sensors, which are mainly used actually for this kind of application, for what we are using at the moment.
Yeah. Besides this infrared detection, so this is the most common sensor technique for presence detection, is the passive infrared technology. This is also close to lighting, to an optical, because this is just a detection of the infrared part of the spectrum, which means the heat of the human body is detected in a way. So this is also not so far away from lighting. And there's also some other technologies to detect in presence. There are also a lot of it. The next one, which is used in Europe, is high frequency or radar. This is really radar. So there's an active part which sends out a high frequency EM range to the room and gets something back, like in radar. And if you get something back, then it's in detection. There's also ultrasonic on the market, more in the US. And ultrasonic is also a quite good detection method. And also you can also take in camera or a gas sensor for CO2 or something else, but this is not so fast in detection. There are a lot of technologies to detect. I've also seen on a trade fair one sensor creator who detects some kind of heartbeat, to different how many people are in a room, not just their presence. So there's a lot of technology available and also quite expensive, but the most common one, at least in Europe, is passive infrared. This is cheap, simple, easy to use, easy to understand, and also easy to design in a way, because you have a certain range in a certain room, because this is also an optical information the sensor gets. So this is also could be tiered from one room to the next room. Yeah, and the issue is how to measure this, because if RELUX started...
Yes, as I told, and when we start beginning to make sensor calculations, also some companies are becoming in interest to starting with a kind of standardization for how to measure and also handling the data for these sensors.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 2014, here in Switzerland, the word Verein in English is...
for what?
Oh, Verein.
Verein? Clear?
No, community.
Community?
Okay, so they started the sense norm.
Yeah.
The
community
and the community of sense norm.
And Verein, not an association, but a group of people, a group of interesting people
who have the same interest. And they started to work on these things, defining these things also. And we want to show you a short video about this measuring method, so that you have a little bit of feeling what happens there, and so also you will see that there is a lot of people are working on this point.
Yeah, because this is something where every manufacturer of sensors just told this is my detection range and so on, and since 2014 this group started, but later on there was a standard how to measure it, and there's actually we have a sense norm standard, so and from this group provided standard, but there's also an IC standard, and this measurement is what we see here is according the sense norm standard and also according the IC standard. This is similar. It's also based on each other in a way. And we can see here that there is a movement detection of a black body moved, and he's also heated, because infrared is a detection of heat in a way. And so this standardized measurement body is here tangular and radial, and this is for the minor motion detection. Here just an arm, and here we see a professional who takes this measurement data and provides this data in a data format which we can use later on in RELUX. That is also one of the reasons behind. So just to tell, in the beginning of RELUX, there was no standard, and any manufacturer has done it by his own. He said, okay, I have this detection range in this area. There was less or just company internal measurements how to do it. So quite simple. Somebody walking into an area and it detects, and then they make a note how far he was away from this. Really primitive stuff. And there was no guide, no measurement standard. And with sense norm, since a couple of years, then there is a standard.
There is a standard, and many professionals work on this and take it forward. We, from the RELUX side, we have here also some tools just to explain you, to give you the feeling about the handling of this data, which we call RELUX Analyze. And after the measurement, so we have two levels of data. The first data is the measuring data, as we can see here. And this will be optimized for the planning, so that we can switch to the planning data, and which is shown in this figure. And for example, here we have a rotation symmetrical sensor, and here, for example, we have a sensor which is useful for floors, which has a more longitudinal
corridors, hallways. Yeah,
it's all a little bit similar. You see it. We know it from here is the measuring data from this corridor sensor, and yes, and this is a program. The RELUX Analyze is a small program which we distribute for companies who are handling with sensors, but not only with sensors. This is also useful for luminaires to create graphics, data sheets, and so on.
Yep, and also data. And with this tool, it's also possible to create this planning data out of this measuring data, because this measuring data, you have seen, it's really detailed with a lot of small little sparkles on the shape of this detection range, and therefore there's some kind of flatten the detection range by so-called planning data. This is also in part of the SenseNorm standard, also in part of this IEC 63180. This is the IEC standard how to measure sensor data, and there's also an part of the planning data, and you have to cover with your planning data shapes 85% of this real measurement sketch. So this is in part which make it simple to design, and we in RELUX use this planning data to plan actually this detection range, the sensor, and also with this new measurement methods, and also with our new tool, quite new, it's also 1 year ago since we put it in the market. We have also a new data format. It's XML based. It's called, or I like to call it Sense XML, and with this XML file you have the measuring data and also the planning data, a lot of metadata to the sensor, all together in one file format. And this Sense XML format can also where all the detection range, as you can see here, you have all the detection range in one file with this old Olmdat-like exchange of a candela to meter concept. You have just one detection range by one file, not so nice, and now we have a new modern format to cover it all, comfortable in a modern format. And if we are on data formats, it's also possible, of course, to use the Sense XML and also this old Sense Olmdat style in GLDF. So it's also possible to put it in GLDF or today in WOLF format. And you can populate your luminaires with the sensor detection ranges, or you can put multiple sensors on a luminaire. Also, you can just have single sensors in a WOLF or GLDF file. So this is absolutely possible to transport, and we hope that a lot of vendors, a lot of manufacturers of sensors going to measure the devices in order to have a real measured or a good quality of the detection ranges in the design tools, and not something which and product manager of the sensors just say, okay, should be like this. Yeah, that's why it's good to have a measurement. By the way, this tool which you can see here, Klaus has told, it's more for manufacturers. It's not for a single designer or for a single-use client. It's more really for the industrial way. This tool is created to generate hundreds, thousands of LDC pictures, or here sensing pictures in a batch process, as web service, as command line tool, or here with an interface, if you like. And this is powerful if you have thousands of LDCs and you want to have from all of them UGR tables, classification data, U2 values, send flux codes, whatever, angles, and diagrams of this LDC. So cone diagrams, isolux, distance, a lot. Yeah. So if you are interested in it, I'm sure we have some questions to this tool. There's a website on relux.com. There's a section for manufacturers, and in the section for manufacturers you can find RELUX Analyze with more information, some more videos and stuff.
Or contact us directly if you have more questions about this. Okay, now should we go to show how sensors works in the practice when the planner is using it? And in the beginning, I will want to show you sensors in our application for Revit, in RELUX CAD for Revit, because the sensor planning is a little bit more handled by electrical planning, and from nature this will mostly be happen in when we make planning complete buildings and so on, and so it is preferred to do this, for example, in Revit or in another CAD software. And we have here the possibility in our application RELUX CAD for Revit, sorry. We have here a lot of applications. We have access to ReluxNet, and on our ReluxNet you will also able to find sensors for download and use it in our applications, for example in Revit or later in RELUX Desktop. And we have here also some tools for to work with these sensors. You have here the possibility to have a list about the in this project included sensors, similar like we have it for the luminaires and so on. And then you can, I have here just to show you the complete building, but now we will choose my section here to this
ground floor here.
Yeah. This ground floor, and here, for example, is now a sensor placed, and you can see the detection range, how it works inside of this room. We have here also the possibility to switch off, for example, the tangential detection range, so that we can just see the radial, maybe the presence if available. And in that way you can use it directly in your planning software.
Yeah, it's also a just-in feature which you got in Revit if you have our RELUX CAD for Revit add-on plugin. Revit itself, without our plugin, has not the capability to show or handle sensors, which is a pity. Maybe they closed the gap in later versions. But today, if you want to visualize detection ranges of sensors, you have to have our add-on in order to see it and to work with it. And here it's, for example, you want to cover the complete big room, the large room there, and this means you need, if you're going to have this sensor of this type, you have to have at least 2 of them, maybe 4 of them, to cover the complete room with a detection range. And here you can also see, okay, maybe with a tangential zone, I can cover it all, and with a more detailed minor motion detection area, I have to put in more of them in this room, so that you have in the right amount, in the right locations for the sensors available in your design. And this is a benefit to have it in Revit to see directly where is what's detected. And of course, it would be great if we have a detection of the complete room, but just the room maybe, or just in the corner of this room, that you have an awareness where is the detection of this room in which kind of situation.
Yes, and I also will show you this a little in RELUX Desktop, where I can show it a little bit in more details. Here, for example, this is the same scene which we have. A part of the scene we have seen before in Revit. So we have the possibility to export the scenes from Revit into the RELUX program. And then inside of including the sensors, or as well you can place the sensors only here in RELUX Desktop. Now here I have removed the sensor if for this room. Also I have included a small cube to show you the effect of the calculation. And then we have the possibility to place the sensors similar like you know it from RELUX, from the light calculation. And then depending on what you have selected here on the ribbon for sensors, you can choose, you will see the effects of the sensor, of this detection range inside of your 3-dimensional rooms. You can show it with a grid or flat. And if you make a modification in your scene, I will now enlarge my thing, so I will directly see what happens for which parts of my room are outside of the detection or inside of the detection, and And this is the typical way which we use for work with sensors in our RELUX desktop program.
Yeah. So it's possible to cover with a wall or even with a bit of thick paper the detection of an infrared sensor. So it's also a way to simulate in RELUX what is the behavior of a column in the room and so on. What part of the room is not covered completely. And this is also possible in Revit, of course, but here in desktop it's way more fast for us to interact. Of course, there's not so many information in it. And this is the way to work with it and to have a selection of the right sensor for the right room. And there are a lot of different detection ranges on the market. So more cubish rectangle ones, or more round ones, or if you have seen the corridor sensor, there are a lot of different shapes of the detection range, and to find the best detection range for the best room, and of course with the best size of the detection range, depending on the height of the sensor, of course. This is something which you can do in RELUX, quite graphical, quite nice, which we think is a benefit for a designer. And the use of sensors, of course, is something where you can easily save a lot of energy slash also money and CO2, of course, in the discussions today. So to use sensors is an easy way, and this passive infrared sensors are also quite cheap. There's not a big investment in the sensors. They are much cheaper than a luminaire itself in most of the cases. Of course, they are, as I said, heartbeat sensors and so on. They are more expensive. But the common infrared stuff is really cheap and easy to use to dim down via DALI or another protocol, or just to switch it hardly on and off. Together with some data detection, there's a good way to save a lot amount of energy, which is a good benefit to everybody, to the pocket, but also to the environment and so on. So it makes sense to work with sensors in a way. And also the lighting designers has to face more sensors and not to leave the field to the electrical designers. Of course, at the moment it's more in the field of the electrical part, which is close to lighting at all. So there's not a hard border of it, but yeah, detection is something. Also, if you're going if you make a design also in light scenes or in a more detailed way, then it also makes sense to work with sensors to detect different parts and have different usages in one room covered and at least treated by light. So this is something which is good to have it in a design. Yeah, also we have to say there is also the possibility to combine luminaires and sensors,
so which is typical in some for some products. Mm-hmm. This is also possible, of course. And have we some more, or should we go to the questions?
No, we have also to tell, because we are in the Black Friday week. There's a special offer we have to announce. We have self-study training online courses. There's also one online self-study course where you can find out more about sensors. There's an indoor self-study course, and in this indoor course we have also a lot of sensing stuff. And in this special week we have an offer of 70% off of the regular price. So if you are going to get some kind of seminar, an online training, now is a good chance to have a look into it for 70% less. So this is just this week, just as a commercial block on this. And I also have to say that we have the possibility to have special projects with sensors. We have in the coming months we have several projects where we work with sensors for special customers, for special needs, in order to make sensors a bit more aware in the market. We create some online tools to have the selection of the best sensor for the best application, and also to calculate how many energy you can save in this certain situation. So we are also open to this and to create more interesting tools regarding sensors for lighting. So now we can go to the questions.
Okay, the first one is a little bit a complex question. With regard to sensor specifications provided by suppliers, I have to come across a product specification to indicate the sensitivity of sensing capability, large motion to minor motion, etc. Specifications generally.
The specification generally only states sensing range and height. How can one determine the sensibility of this sensor? If I get the question right, you get from your sensor deployer some simple graphics or just some numbers in which high you have which range of detection, and this is of course not enough, or at least you can also do in design with, but you have all the parts in between not available. But you need to have a support from the supplier. You on your own you cannot create an own sensor data out of this simple values we have. You need to have the provider, the manufacturer of the sensors, to have a measurement, or to at least go in more complex data formats like our Sense XML or this Sense entity stuff to have more information on the sensor. Or you have to stay with you have just the height and range in meters, and to go with it within circle and make it suitable for your applications.
Okay, then what are all technologies which are being used in light sensors other than infrared heat detection?
In light sensors, you mean if you're not talking about presence, if you're talking about light, in light there's also multiple technologies. Yes, and at the moment the most common way to detect daylight is a simple lighting related resistor or a transistor, and this is really cheap part of sense for the sensors, and the tricky part is how to determine the right portion of light to this, because you just get in resistance out of this devices, and you need to calibrate the sensors. That's why you need to calibrate with a lux meter. In reality, this cheap sensors. There are also more expensive sensors, but seldom, which really detects the light which they see, and this you do not need to set up in a way. They are detected by their own, but they are really more expensive. And to detect light, there's also a philosophy to detect the light outside of the room or detect inside the room. There's also two philosophies.
Yes, one is more for the switching on of the light if there is a person, or as a person is coming into a specific area, and the other side is to make depending on the daylight situation, to switch the light on, off, or dim the light, which are two different views for sensors.
Yeah, it's also most important where you detect the light. It's also not so easy to answer. I would personally say detect the light where the user is located, and then dim or takes this daylight in account on the position where the light is used. But there are different technologies on the market. Yeah.
Okay.
Next one, great feature and demo. Will be sure to try it out. Yeah, it's for free. Use it. I like the new option to select calculation surfaces also. When we will have the ability for emergency calculations within Revit. Yeah, this is a good point. It's on our development roadmap to have also emergency calculations inside Revit. This is a question of time. It will be most probably by next year. I cannot say on which point, on which date or next year, but next year we will have an Revit version with an emergency lighting calculation option.
Okay, software is free of charge or paid? It's free of charge. So the sensor is similar like the luminaires. You can use it in our software.
In RELUX Desktop, we have
in
to
RELUX Desktop for the RELUX Cut for Revit. It's a payable plugin for Revit. And also we have the third-party license, which will be similar, but at the moment you will only get sensor detection range distributions only from members, so it will be free for you to use it.
Yeah, and the Revit plugin is one price for all. There's not a separate price just for the sensor stuff. It comes with the complete plugin, and the complete plugin costs a piece of money.
Okay. How do you combine luminaires with sensors? This is in our documentation for our members who created the databases and or the RAW files, and in the future the GLDF files. And there you will have possibilities, and in this documentation this is is described. It is not possible for you as a user of the software to do this by yourself. You must use the products which are coming from our member databases.
Mm-hmm. The manufacturer can do it. Yeah. In convener belt area, who the sensors differential between the presence on human in the area, in the convener belt area. What is the convener belt area? How the sensors difference between the presence of human in the area? Okay, I didn't get it right, so it's hard to give an answer. But the presence. Yeah, the presence as the passive infrared sensor at least can just differ of heat parts in the area. There's no clue if it's a human or an animal or an heat source. If you throw in, I don't know, in heated I don't know, and heat pottery or something else, and heat water stream in the room, that also detects just the heat which is detected. There's a second part. We currently assume convener belt is still on operation, but human presence is absent for a long duration. I have issues with the word convener belt, so I can't say what it is. But please stay in contact with us, and we will find the right translation for it. There's another one, how we reduce light pollution in outdoor areas with neighbors. Are there any regulations regarding light pollution? Oh, you know a bit more of this regulations, Klaus. Yeah.
Yes, of course. There is it's a big discussion to reduce light pollution in outdoor lighting, and also the tool will help. However, this is also the tool for the detection which ranges we have is for making the planning that it is working. Another point is take a look to the it's a little bit similar like to the energy consumption, to say to reduce light pollution by switch on light only when it is really needed. And so there are many ideas, but this is also the next step in the development, also for the planning software. At the moment, it is not possible to make an estimation how many light you will spare when you use light sensors, for example, in the outdoor area.
Yeah, hard to say. It's more a general setting of the lights and less sensors. Of course, switch off is always great, and I've seen a lot of street lights also with sensors that switch on and off or dim.
Yes, there is, so that is starting switching on the light if a person is coming, and switching off when the person has left. So this.
But you have not a calculation engine for this.
Yes, what we can calculate is the situation when at which position the detector will start working, and not on, but I guess in this situation you will have also the possibility to to make amount of how in a statistical way how many people are working here in the night during the night time, so that it makes sense to mount the sensors or not. If you do this in the street where all the time traffic all the time, it will not make any sense, because in any way the light is burning all the time. But in many situations where during some night times only a few persons or a few drivers, bicycle drivers, or also car drivers will only drive, it may be helpful to reduce the light pollution. But this has a lot of impacts also for people who are living there, because they sometimes may have trouble if the light is going on and off all the time during the night time. So this has many aspects to think about it.
Okay. You already have energy, you already have emergency lighting with an emergency route. What different is coming out next year?
Yes.
In Revit, talking about RELUX CAD for Revit, in our application for Revit, there will be next year the emergency lighting possibility. Today you have not the possibility with our add-on to calculate emergency routes or anti-panic or hazard areas and so on. In RELUX Desktop, there is already a lot of emergency options available, but this is also be extended with our next major release.
Yes.
So if you have to do something with emergency lighting, stay tuned on our next coming soon, really soon, next week's new desktop major release, and there will be a lot of more emergency lighting, but I will not tell you the details. I will not spoiler you. There will be a lot of fine stuff, and we will tell you also in our next season, in our next episode, we will have also emergency lighting as a topic. So last question, Klaus.
Yes.
Last question.
Will sensor planning be available in RELUX CAD for AutoCAD as well? Possible to select in AutoCAD? For me, this is a very interesting question.
Yeah.
And I will discuss this point with our CEO, and we will see. At the moment, At the moment, it is not possible, but
it's technically possible to build in, I guess.
There are some ideas. We have not the same possibilities as we have it in Revit, because it's in the nature. In AutoCAD, we have a drawing. In Revit, we have a building with all the structures like rooms and so which are necessary. But maybe it will be helpful for a small tool, for example, just to see the detection range on the ground or something like that, so that you will have the possibility to have a little bit support for placing
circuit block of the detection range. Yeah, something like this. Yeah. Last point I have on my list is to tell you about our next episode, which I already had done a little. Our next episode, episode number 7, will happen not in December, so sorry. We will have Christmas and New Year's Eve pause. We have vacations, we both, and we will see us next time in January. On the 20th of January is our episode number 7, and with the topic emergency lighting. So emergency lighting on the top with all possibilities we have. It's also a quite large topic. We have to find out what we can tell you in half an hour, and of course we're happy to have you there, and with your a lot of questions. This is also nice for us to see what is on your mind, and and we just have to say have a nice Christmas.
Have a nice Christmas. Start well in the next year.
Stay healthy,
and looking forward to see you next time.
Yeah, next year. Bye bye.